Saints Falcons preview, ladies and gentlemen. Amongst all of the excitement this week with Dennis Allen getting fired, I forgot. Did y'all forget? It's easy to forget the Saints have a football game this Sunday, right? Saints have a football game this Sunday at home in the Superdome against the hated rivals, the Atlanta Falcons. So today we're going to talk about that game. We're going to cover the game this entire weekend. But it all starts right now. The backdrop, off the bench, T-Bob, Jacob Hester. Let's talk Saints Falcons.
It's an odd time to be a Saints fan, but I do know this. We will have conversations throughout the rest of the year as to whether or not you actually want to win the game coming up. This is the one that you want to win here, okay? I do not care about winning any other game. In fact, I'd probably say objectively it's better for the Saints to lose every other game and try to maximize.
Remember, tanking's not a thing. Remember, the players don't tank. Remember, there's no incentive for the players to tank. Remember, there's no incentive for Darren Rizzi to tank. So tanking is this weird thing you hear all the time that doesn't actually exist. People think it exists, but it does not, right? Does it give Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, does it give any of those guys, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, do they have any incentive to tank, any incentive to lay down on the field and get embarrassed? No, right? They're all professionals. They are being paid a whole lot of money to do a job very well, and they're going to try and do it well. Darren Rizzi is trying to win his job. He's trying to prove he should be head coach of the New Orleans Saints moving forward, and that only can happen if he wins this game or wins games down the stretch. Clint Kubiak is coaching for his job. Clint Kubiak certainly doesn't want to say, hey, guys, let's go out there and just lay eggs every game. That way we have a high draft pick. Because if he does that, guess what? Clint Kubiak won't be here next year. He might not be here next year anyways. Okay, so before we even start, this notion of do we want to win the game isn't worth talking about because the Saints are going to try and win the game. So we are going to talk about it as if they are going to try and win the game, which they will.
As their draft pick. But you never want to lose to the Falcons, especially not because the Falcons are sitting here. They're trying to get their divisional record of 5-0 for the first time since 2014. The all-time series, remember, is now tied again. So this is your chance. Or excuse me, I think you're actually one game under now. Remember, you've never been in the lead with this series since the first ever game that was played. You don't want to lose ground there. With a win, the Falcons would go to 7-3 and 7-1 against the NFC, and they would sweep you for the season and basically assert their dominance. And make no mistake, the Falcons, I mean, you want to talk about, in the NFL right now, there's a few divisions where teams are starting to run away with it. Like the
Falcons have had a very good run of games, good as in luck, not exactly good as in their play. If we look at the games, okay, the Falcons run into the Cowboys with Dak Prescott's injury. All right, so they get a Cooper Rush-led Cowboys team for most of that game. They win by less than a touchdown. They get the Buccaneers, no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. You can see here K. Dotton, Raheem Jarrett, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Ryan Miller, Sterling Shepard, Sean Tucker. Okay, so now, and they win that game by 5. Okay, before that, they get absolutely dog-walked by the Seahawks. So interesting run of games for the Falcons. Look, at the end of the day, you got to win these games. They have won the game, so nothing against them. But the Falcons have, the last couple of games here, some of the wins they stacked up, certainly, I'm not going to say lucky, but I'm not going to say lucky.
The Bills could clinch maybe by Thanksgiving, it looks like. And then in the NFC South, the Texans pulling away in the AFC South, and the Falcons right now pulling away as the only team with a winning record in the NFC South. So it's the last game you want to win. And Jake, I got to say, I like this from a timing perspective. You've perfectly timed the interim bump.
Yeah. So the coach's bump is a real thing. I can promise you this. The Saints will play with an insane amount of effort this Sunday for Darren Rizzi. I guarantee we see it all the time. We saw it with the Panthers whenever they switched to Andy Dalton. What happens? They go and win the game against the Raiders. We see it with the Browns. What happens when Deshaun Watson is replaced with Jameis Winston? We see a huge bump. They go and beat the Ravens. Okay, so the interim head coach bump is a legitimate thing. The Saints should feel that. Now, the problem is the Saints are going to have to feel that interim bump with without Cedric Wilson, without Kool-Aid McKinstry, without Chris Olave, without Lucas Patrick, and without Bub Means, which means their wide receiver core looks like this. Chris Olave is out. Cedric Wilson is out. Bub Means is out. Rashid Shaheed is out. So it leaves us with Mason Tipton, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Jermaine Jackson, the worst member of the Jackson 5. So, again, I'm sitting here telling you, and look, I mean, just look at this. Like, just look at this. It makes me sick every time I see this. Lucas Patrick out. Eric McCoy out. Shane Lemieux out. Like, all these players hurt. So, the offensive line, Tulise Fuaga, Nick Saldiveri, I guess Connor McGovern is back. Cesar Ruiz, Trevor Penning. So, we will see that bump when it comes to the effort. But, damn, man, like, we just can't catch a break with these injuries. It's just the same with the Pelicans. But now, all of a sudden, your secondary, obviously, Paulson Adebo's on the IR. He's been hurt. He's not going to be a Saint. We're not going to see him on the field again. Kool-Aid is out now, so that leaves us with some combination of John Charles, Rico Payton, who's questionable, Alante Taylor, Ugo Amadi. Just not good, right? Like, not what you want to see here at all. Just a weakened Saints team. Again, I think the effort will absolutely be there. I think that the interim coach bump is a real thing, but you got to wonder, like, do we have the horses to win this game?
A lot of times, your interim coaches, that first week, everybody's juiced up, new stuff, new energy.
Yep.
The old regime's out of there. You're excited. You play really well that Sunday, and then it tends to kind of dissipate and fall apart.
See it all the time.
Oh, yeah, you're a bad team.
Yeah.
So here's to hoping that you can capture some of that interim magic, get that interim bump, beat the Falcons, and then who cares what happens after that? Right. This is the Saints Super Bowl. This is the playoffs.
Yeah.
This is the chance, Rizzi.
It is the Super Bowl. You win this game, you give the fans so much happiness. You get so much momentum for about a week, I guess. You get so much momentum that doesn't really matter. But damn, it would feel good. It really would. And it would kind of show like, hey, this is going nowhere fast, but maybe it was Dennis Allen. I'll show you this. This is kind of interesting. So the line opens, and we'll do a gambling preview later on, but the line opens 3.5. Okay. Kind of a crazy change because it opened, the look ahead was pick or one, opens 3.5, Saints plus 3.5. So if you look at the Cowboys Falcons game, not really like the Cowboys, more yards than the Falcons, yards per play, 5.1 to 5.5. Yards per rush, Falcons only averaged 3.3 yards per rush and gave up 6.5 yards per rush. They did have a turnover, but again, this is against like Cooper Rush. Like this is with, Bijan, again, 19 for 86, just kind of whatever. They allow Rico Dowdle to have 12 for 75. Cooper Rush throws it 25 times. So this is a win, but it's not exactly the greatest win in the whole world. And then on the other side of things, the Saints have what I would think is the most improbable loss in NFL history when it comes to the box score. Now, I know box scores don't really matter when it comes to wins and losses, and I agree with that because the fact of the matter is we have lost 7 straight games. But what I'm telling you is that the Saints should not have been downgraded 2.5 points through the 3 at home off of a box score like this, where they absolutely dominate the box score. So what I think is you have a pretty weird, you have a line that's kind of off, and the betting market is showing that. 85% of the bets are on Atlanta, 73% of the handles on Atlanta, yet they do not want to go to 4. And when they did go to 4, it immediately was bet back to 3.5. So what this tells you is that when they changed this and went to Atlanta -4, there was significant buyback on the Saints +4 that immediately, within an hour, 8:08 to 9:02, within an hour dropped it from +4 to +3.5, where it has stayed 3.5. If the respected money was on Atlanta, it would blow through the 4, and it would either stay at the 4 or keep on tracking. So there is something there. There is something there with this line freezing at 3.5. The line is telling us something.
Go make it happen.
do well this week, but don't do well after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Honestly, from the outside looking in, I get why you would say that about the Saints Falcons. That's your rival, and you don't like them at all. So I completely get that. It's like if the Chargers and the Raiders, like I can never say go lose to the Raiders on purpose. So I completely get it. If you do what you're talking about and you beat the Falcons and lose to everybody else, you're still going to be in line to get a quarterback. You have to get a game changer out of this draft. Let's say it doesn't end up being quarterback because of the Saints' history. It has to be a player that immediately, as soon as you turn in the card to Goodell, he's impactful.
Yes. Agreed. And I've talked about that before, where the time is over for rotational players. This guy could be kind of decent. You know, like even Darren Rizzi, who has been okay in pass rush this year. Even someone like here, not good enough, or someone like him. We need someone who is game changer, a wrecking ball, a legitimate all-pro possibility. We need if we're going to take an alignment, it better be Penei Sewell. If we're going to take a wide receiver, it better be Jamar Chase. If we're going to take a quarterback, it better be Joe Burrow. Like it's got to be at that level, because we have to get good quick, and the only way we can get good quick is getting really, really good players in the NFL draft. So I do agree with Jacob. Like we have to take some absolute studs, whatever position it is, because we need all of them. But we got to take them in this draft, in the next draft, in the next draft.
As soon as it happens. And you have that opportunity. You haven't been there in a long time. And there's been times in your history that you've had the opportunity and you've selected Sullivan, a defensive tackle out of Georgia back in the day, right? It's like, what?
Yeah.
We did, huh?
Yeah.
So even like before this front office got there, like you have not been the best at handling that situation. You've traded your entire draft for a running back, one that I love, and Ricky.
I mean, you got to basically have 2017, 2016 is what we have to have. We have to have the 2016 right into the 2017 draft classes, and that's what it's going to take to truly right this ship and right the franchise.
Williams, right? But you haven't handled that situation. You have to handle that. You're going to have a top pick. You have a bad team that just traded one of its best players. You're an interim coach. Everything's bad. You have an opportunity to change your fortune here. Like, with this draft, you got, all these picks for Lattimore, but it's like, do you trust the person doing the picking?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed yesterday. No, you don't. But
I mean, it wasn't too long ago, less than 10 years ago, back to back, probably the two best draft classes in the franchise history.
That's for then. For now,
right. True.
Beat the Falcons on Sunday.
True.
Let's get one good vibe Sunday.
Yes.
And think about vibes.
Yes.
Think about the first time these two teams matched up, right?
Man, if we beat the Falcons in the Dome with the Rizzler, a.k.a. Merry Rizmus, on the sideline, the vibes will be absolutely immaculate.
Saints 2-1. I think the Falcons were 1-2, so close to 0-3. You felt like you had a chance to bury them, take a dominant lead. Everything was going to work out. The Saints were good. And the two teams have gone in completely opposite directions since then, right? And so basically, this is a spike game. I just want to piss in their Cheerios,
100%.
And make them eat it, and then whatever, go on, win the NFC South. Who gives a damn? Doesn't matter. Kirk Cousins will disappoint you in the playoffs. But for this Sunday, win the game and then win nothing else. Come on, Saints. Lock it. Let the Hoodats have one positive feeling after week 2 that is not just the firing of the head coach. That's the goal for Sunday. Okay? Beat the Falcons. Wow.
I'll tell you this. If we had Chris Olave, I would love the Saints in this matchup. I lean the Saints plus 3.5, but I'm not going to lie. Part of me does look at this, and I'm looking at this like, no Marshawn, no Kool-Aid. We've got no Cedric Wilson, no Chris Olave, no Lucas Patrick. Bub Means isn't even available. Like normally I'd be sitting here making fun of Mason Tipton and Bub Means is our 1 and 2, but I can't even do that because Bub Means isn't even there, right? I have to go all the way to Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Mason Tipton, and Jermaine Jackson. Okay, So as much as I want to love the Saints in this game, it is difficult for me to try and figure out exactly our line to victory. Now, I'll tell you this, a positive thing is that Derek Carr will have plenty of time to throw the football because the Atlanta Falcons do not get after the quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons defense is nothing special. If we look at DVOA, total DVOA, the Falcons are 14, the Saints are 21. Offensive DVOA, Atlanta is 5th. The Saints have dropped all the way to 22, although a lot of this is with Spencer Rattler. Defensively, the Falcons are 21st and the Saints are 23rd. So not exactly the best defense in the world. Now, some of this you do have to factor in that Marshawn is gone. So we're not going to look at like defender versus wide receiver 1 because that obviously had a lot to do with Marshawn Lattimore, who's not there anymore. Pass defense, the Saints are 13, but again, that's questionable because of Marshawn. Atlanta's 19. Rushing wise, the Saints are Atlanta's 21 and the Saints are 31. So you would think it's going to be a good game for Bijan Robinson. Granted, Bijan didn't have that great of a game against the Cowboys, who, according to DVOA, should be, 32? 29. So they're right there with us in just the inability to stop the run. So I do love the spot for the Saints. I do agree with T-Bob there. I do like what the market is doing. I do love that the Saints crept up to +4, but then there was immediate pushback and sent the line back to 3.5. I do like all that. But I am pretty much putting the entirety of like why I think the Saints can win this game on the interim coach bump. And it's going to be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see exactly how Clint Kubiak operates because without Dennis Allen over him, like will he kind of, will he? I mean, the team has nothing to hold back, right? There's no reason to hold back. So we should see every single bit of this playbook. The team should be pissed off after Carolina and simultaneously should be playing with jubilation now that Dennis Allen isn't there anymore. So it'll be very interesting to watch for sure. I'll be in the Superdome, but I think it'll be a close one. I think it'll be a close game. I think we will play really hard at home, super motivated. My only question is how far can the motivation get you when Jermaine Jackson is basically your wide receiver too? So it's going to be a whole hell of a lot of Alvin Kamara. Can we stop Bijan Robinson? What's the secondary look like without Marshawn? I have full faith in Alante Taylor, but even the secondary is banged up. Like with Kool-Aid landing on the injury report. So tough. Luckily, this is a defense that the defensive line shouldn't be that big of a deal. Where like usually we say like, how are we going to stop blank defensive line because of our offensive line? Well, the Falcons, they're like I said, their pressure is basically nothing. So, but I'm with T-Bob 100%. Win this game. Win this game. Just give me this. Give me these 3 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be covering this much more this weekend. Please make sure to stay tuned into the channel. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.